The village of Oakhaven was a symphony of sorrow. Rain lashed against the windows, wind howled through the empty streets, the sea raged, a hungry beast gnawing at the shoreline. 2 years the storms had come. 2 years the fishing boats remained beached, their nets empty. 2 years since her brother Kaelan had vanished at sea. Mara sat by the window, her needle flying. She wasn't mending her own shawl, though it hung thin and threadbare. No, she worked on a rough-spun cloak, much too large for her. It was Kaelan's cloak, the one he wore on the fishing boat. She clutched it to her cheek. The scent of salt and sea lingered, a fading memory of her brother. Mara's family, like all the others, was starving. The baker had boarded up his shop weeks ago. The miller's grain had long since turned to dust. Despair had settled over Oakhaven like the endless fog. But Mara refused to give in. Kaelan wouldn't want that. He would want them to hope. Each stitch Mara sewed into the cloak was a prayer, a whisper of hope against the storm. She remembered Kaelan teaching her to tie knots, his laughter echoing across the waves. She remembered his stories of mermaids and sea monsters, told with a twinkle in his eye. Her fingers trembled as she worked. The memory of the day Kaelan disappeared slammed into her, vivid and brutal. The storm that had risen so suddenly, the frantic search parties, the empty boat tossed carelessly against the rocks, her parents, hollowed by grief, barely clinging to life, but through the pain, a new resolve solidified within Mara. The villagers had given up hope. They believed the sea had taken Kaelan, swallowed him whole, but Mara refused to believe it. She could feel it in her bones, in the depths of her soul, that Kaelan was still out there, somewhere. She just had to find a way to bring him home. Mara's gaze fell upon the old lighthouse, a skeletal finger pointing at the stormy sky. It had stood abandoned for years, ever since old Silas, the lighthouse keeper, had passed. The villagers called it bad luck, a harbinger of storms. They said it was pointless to relight it. But Mara saw it differently. The lighthouse wasn't a symbol of despair, it was a beacon of hope. A light in the darkness, guiding lost souls home. If she could relight the lantern, maybe, just maybe, it would guide Kaelan back to them. The thought filled her with a surge of determination. It wouldn't be easy. The path to the lighthouse was treacherous, even in good weather. And tonight, with the storm raging, it would be close to impossible. But Mara didn't hesitate. For Kaelan, she would brave any storm. Clutching Kaelan's cloak tightly around her, she stepped out into the raging storm. The wind hit Mara like a physical blow, stealing her breath and blinding her with rain. Waves crashed against the cliffs, spraying icy water that soaked through her thin clothes. The path was barely visible, swallowed by the encroaching sea. Every step was a battle against the elements. The wind threatened to rip her from the cliff face. The rain turned the path into a treacherous mudslide. Fear gnawed at her, but she pushed it down, fueled by her love for her brother. She thought she heard Kaelan's voice on the wind, urging her forward. She remembered his laughter, his warmth, the way he always protected her. He wouldn't want her to give up. He would want her to be strong. And so she continued, one agonizing step at a time. The lighthouse loomed before her, a dark giant against the raging sky. The door creaked open, revealing a spiral staircase swallowed by darkness. Mara took a deep breath and stepped inside, the storm momentarily forgotten. The air was thick with the scent of dust and decay. Cobwebs hung from every corner, shrouding the stairs in a ghostly embrace. But above, at the very top, a faint glimmer of light beckoned. The lantern. Each step up the winding staircase was a victory. Her legs screamed in protest, her lungs burned with exertion. But she pushed on, fueled by a hope that burned brighter than the storm outside. Finally, she reached the top, her hand gripping the railing for support. The lantern stood before her, a magnificent brass contraption, cold and lifeless. Mara carefully cleaned the soot from the glass, her fingers tracing the intricate metalwork. Then, with a deep breath, she struck a match. The flame flickered, hesitant at first, then burst to life, casting a warm glow over her face. With trembling hands, she ignited the lantern. A beam of light sliced through the darkness, a beacon of hope piercing the heart of the storm. Mara watched, tears streaming down her face, as the light spread out across the churning sea. A promise whispered into the night. "Kaelin, I'm bringing you home."